Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is Tahmina Watson, your host of Tahmina Talks Immigration. Welcome. This summer, I decided to record a series called Legal Heroes in the Trump Era. I wanted to speak with some of the lawyers who have stepped up beyond their day jobs to make a difference in immigration, civil rights, and much more. I wanted their insights from their work in the last 4 years so we can learn lessons to take into the future, especially as one of the most consequential elections in America lies ahead. The interview series became a book called Legal Heroes in the Trump Era. Be inspired, expand your impact, change the world. The book can be found on Amazon and other outlets. I hope you will pick it up. Enjoy these interviews. I hope you'll learn a lot. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you for being here. Hello, everyone. This is Tahmina Watson on Tahmina Talks Immigration. I have an incredible guest today, and I cannot wait for you to meet her. I've known her for a long time, and she is a fellow immigration attorney, but she is also an author of a children's book called Our American Dream. Fiona McEntee, immigration attorney in Chicago of McEntee Law Group. Fiona, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
Appreciate it. Well, we're recording this just in the middle of the chaos that the latest travel ban has brought us. But there's so much to talk about travel ban, after travel ban. So let's not talk about today's problem, because what we want to talk about is how this problem has become today's issue, because it all started with a different travel ban. But before we get to that, let's talk a little bit about you. Where were you born and where did you grow up?
So I was born and I grew up in Dublin, Ireland.
And how did you get to the US?
So I first came to the US through, I was studying law in Dublin, outside the US, in Ireland and the UK, I think, and also Canada, lots of other places. You can study law at the undergraduate level post high school. And so that's what I was doing. And I got the opportunity to go to participate in an exchange program in law school here in Chicago at DePaul's Law School. So I came for a year, as the story goes, on an exchange, on a J1 exchange visa for a year to study at the law school, and pretty much just fell in love with Chicago from day one almost. And so I finished out the year, went back to Ireland, graduated, and then came back out to go to law school here. And so I've been here permanently since 2005.
Oh, wow. Me too, actually.
Oh,
2005.
no way.
Yeah.
Oh,
I got married to my husband, and then I moved here in 2005, and I love Seattle. It's just amazing. And I have my dream husband, and I love doing what I do. I just wouldn't change
oh,
anything. So
oh,
yeah,
that's
we've had
great.
parallel lives somehow. And
Yeah.
so did you always want to be a lawyer?
No, not at all, actually. And so I come from a pretty big Irish family, but I was one of the first to go to college in my extended family, and my parents never really got that opportunity. They both went straight into the workforce at 18, which was pretty typical, I think, for their generation. It was kind of expected that, you needed to go and help out, and that my dad was the eldest of eight, and so he went in to work, and contribute to the family in that way. So I did not come from a legal background, a legal family at all, a very supportive family, but not one that had lawyers or, that type of like relatives in the legal industry. But so I definitely didn't always want to be a lawyer. It kind of happened in a not by chance, but just it happened in a weird way. My mom took me to a guidance counselor for careers when I was in high school, because I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and I liked a lot of different things. And so so I sat down in his house and did all these crazy aptitude tests, and spent hours doing these little, like, quizzes and everything. And then at the end of the day, he came back and he said, you know, I've looked at everything, and he said that he thought actually what his recommendation was journalism for me. He said, I think journalism, media journalism, which is crazy to think what I have ended up doing. And he said, but he said, why don't you try and get into study law if you can? There are limited, very limited places, and so it's pretty competitive. He said, why don't you try to get into study law, because a lot of journalists have a bachelor's degree in law, and it would be a really good foundation for a career in journalism. And so I said, okay, that, you know, that seemed to, you know, I thought it would, I liked writing, and so I went for it. And then I just pretty much fell in love with studying law, and so that's pretty much all I've been doing. Then I went in to study law at 18, and I've been doing it ever since. So
How interesting. What a great counselor, because I mean, honestly, it's almost like it was a prophecy that's come true.
yeah, I know.
You
Yeah,
know,
I know. I must tell him. He was like a random, like, private. He wasn't through the school or anything. It was like a private, like, kind of business where this is what he would do. And so I've told the story a few times, and I've said, oh, I must go back and tell him that he was really correct, and I haven't had a chance to do that. I keep forgetting, but I must this time. I will try
maybe
to.
this is the motivation, because and
Yeah.
if people don't know it, I mean, one of the things that us lawyers have to do is advocate for our clients, and you have been a vocal advocate, being in the media and talking about the laws that have been handed down one after another, particularly in the last 3 years. And it's journalism to some extent. So how wonderful. So I hope you do contact him. Um,
Mm.
and so tell us a little bit about your legal career up to today.
So I did the law degree in. So I have the bachelor's of civil law from UCD in Dublin, and then got my law degree here in the US, my Juris Doctor, from Chicago Kent College of Law. And during my studies here, during the JD program, was when I really fell in love with immigration. So I was always a kind of a fierce social justice advocate, and my dad's nickname for me since I've been a little kid has been Save the Whales. So he's like, I thought maybe I'd do something environmental related or something, you know. And then when I saw immigration, I thought that really is checking a lot of boxes, but what I wasn't really sure what would be, you know, what would be involved in it. And almost from the start, I really felt like I had found my calling. And so I kind of specialized in immigration in law school. I worked in a couple of clinics throughout we had there was like a nonprofit that we worked with through the Chicago Legal Clinic, and so I was able to work on some cases there. And then the law school had like almost mini little law offices there, and one was an immigration firm in the law school, and so I was able to work there too. And so I left law school knowing that I was definitely going to be working in immigration. And then I left and I worked in a pretty high volume immigration practice, and I worked there for quite a few years. And then I went out on my own and have set up my own law firm and been in practice for 10 years or so, 9, 10 years at this stage. So
That's amazing. And again, parallel lives. When so I was already a barrister in the UK, which, you know, didn't mean anything until George Clooney married one, of course. And then when I moved here, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I thought litigation would be it, but I had a New York bar exam, living in Washington State. It didn't quite match. And then immigration fell on my lap, and I went into it kicking and screaming. But once I started it, the very first day, I just fell in love with it. And then my firm also, this year is 11 years old, and I've not looked
congratulations.
back. So thank you. Yeah, you too. And so immigration has been our passion, yours and mine. But and we have seen many changes, between the time we started practicing, because it was the recession at the time,
Mm-hmm.
to 2016. What happened November 2016 for you when the election was lost?
Oh my God, I actually got chills thinking about that evening, just how sad I felt and how scared I was about what was to come. And I remember going to work the next day and like stopping in Dunkin' Donuts and just kind of looking around and there was just a really palpable like atmosphere. I don't, I'm sure you know what I'm talking. I feel like everybody kind of felt that way. It was just really weird. And then And then I think a lot of people were saying to me, oh, it's not going to be as bad as you think. It's not, he's going to surround himself, Trump's going to surround himself with, he's going to build a team of people, of advisors and certain things. And, this is what I kept hearing. And I was like, I don't know, I don't think
Me
so.
too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And if that's what you think, and that's people who voted for him were saying, I know he's not a politician, but that's what I like about him. And he's going to put the right people in the right places. And so anyway, and obviously we know that didn't happen, and I feel like it's just gone from bad to worse from an immigration point of view. I mean, it's horrific, the things that have happened over the course of this presidency. You wouldn't believe it if you would have told me ahead of time that these things were going to happen. I don't think anybody would have believed that that would have been the case.
I agree. But one of the things that I did was the nervousness and the fear of what could happen, even though none of us could have predicted as bad as it is. And I started a committee immediately in November, and I went to our chapter dinner, AILA chapter dinner, and I stood up and said, who's going to be in this committee? People ran away, but I still got 30 signatures. And then, we were, by January, when the travel ban hit, I was able to be in position to take action. But let's come back to you. So what was the first thing that you did what was the first action that happened that took you out of your office and got you to act?
Well, the very first thing actually that happened was the night of the election. I had seen a post online from one of the Irish newspapers that were looking for looking for people who were living in America to comment on the results of the election. And I remember typing in a thing. I was in bed, my husband was fast asleep, my kids were in bed, and I was bawling, crying in bed. And I was like, I'm crying, writing this. I can't even remember how old my kids were at this stage, but I had 2 kids. I still have 2 kids. And I just remember thinking, I can't believe my daughter is going to grow up in a country where a man who speaks about women like that is going to be president. And so, but anyway, so I gave a comment to a big newspaper in Ireland. So that was like the first kind of like taste of like media advocacy. Really, it was just a tiny little comment, it wasn't anything. But the first thing that really brought me out of my office was the travel ban. And I think you were obviously pretty involved in that too. But ahead of that, myself and my brother works with me in my firm, Ray. He's also an immigration lawyer, qualified in Ireland as a solicitor, and came over and has been working with me for years. But the two of us had signed up to be on standby through the IRAP committee, and so we had signed up to see, like, in advance of anything being issued. And then of course we all know what happened, and we went to O'Hare. We were one of the first lawyers at O'Hare Airport here in Chicago. And I think the rest is history with respect to that.
Yeah, and of course there were various iterations. I actually didn't move from my table for 3 days because I had told everybody, I'm here, you're going to need immigration lawyers, and I have them. And then my phone and email blew up. The only time I actually got out of my room was when I spoke at a rally. It was the first time I spoke at a rally where all I saw were heads. Like, yeah. I don't know how many thousands of people were there. And from that was born Airport Lawyer, interestingly enough. Let's fast forward a little bit. So you have been basically at the forefront, advocating for clients and immigrants and all these changes that are going in. Would you call this activism?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. I do refer to myself as an activist. Yeah.
And would you say lawyering has evolved in the Trump era? It's not just you and me who have been at the forefront challenging these immigration issues, but a lot of lawyers have stepped up, sort of, how can I help? What can I do? And to me, it seems like being at the desk, creating forms, writing letters, that's not just lawyering anymore. It's been more. What would you say is, your opinion on that?
Yeah, I think that lawyers who want to get involved have found ways to do it. I think that we are, and look, everyone everybody thinks about things in a different way. Everyone has different, like, not all lawyers are going to be, this way inclined, whether politically or, called to be activists in this way. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's obviously each to their own type of thing. But for me and for the work that I do, I feel like my role as an immigration lawyer is more than the work that I do here in the office, which is great. And it's so important too. Obviously, it's really important, but it's what else can we do? And I feel like we have a critical role to play in the narratives we're like the gatekeepers of these beautiful stories. And, we see what, our clients, we see the turmoil, we see their success. We are so privileged to have such a front row view of that, the beauty that it can be, the American dream. And I feel like given the platform that we might have as attorneys, as educated professionals, as professionals whose area is very much in the media right now, we have a lot of opportunity to share those stories. And so again, not everybody has to do it, but it's a part of the job that I really like these days, as hard as it is.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, it's exactly how I feel, and I couldn't even add anything to it. But talking about education and narrative, you've taken that even further. And so tell us about the book that you wrote. And I just got it. It just arrived. I haven't had a chance to read it, but here we are. I've just flicked through it a little bit, and there are some beautiful pictures. Let me just show people what's in it. There's some pictures of stories. The illustrations are beautiful, just gorgeous illustrations. Tell us what inspired you to write a children's book.
So I mentioned that I have, and thanks for your lovely words. Our illustrator is incredible. She's actually based in Italy. She's just unreal. But so I have 2 children, and my kids now are 6.5, which is that half is very important, and 4.5. And I just over the years, we've been invited into their schools to read books, and I always wanted to bring in books that I felt were, just had some type of purpose behind them. I just was thinking, I wish there was a book that I felt highlighted the beauty of the types of clients and the stories that we get to hear. And I just wanted to showcase them in a way that I felt like really honored the immigration narrative that I see. I feel like we hear a lot, as active as I try to be on Twitter, I don't think I'll ever have as many followers as President Trump. I don't think my platform will never be that big. So I feel like we're constantly trying to counteract a very negative, hateful narrative. And so I thought, why not put something positive and out there? And so I wanted to kind of think about the stories that I could share in a way that I could share them that makes children realize that it's a good idea and it's how beautiful this country can be if we just open up our doors and our hearts, and just to welcome people from all different places. And everybody's story is different. Everyone comes to America or ends up here from different ways, and the idea is really that no one dream is more important than the other. There's a lot of the stuff that we've heard about, the Statue of Liberty is only for European immigrants, and all this type of stuff is just absolutely ridiculous. And that was not at all the foundation of America.
Yeah, well, you've done a beautiful job. And who else would be a better audience than children? Because, that's our next generation. One of the things that I have done in the last 3 months is create a children's program for mindfulness, because I feel like if there is a way to nurture our children with love, and ways for them to understand that you don't always have to be angry and agitated, particularly when something like COVID-19 changes your life upside down. If we are able to nurture our children to the best of their ability, you'd have a better future. So what you've done for children's education is very, very profound, and I'm glad you did that. Any other books in the pipeline?
I had a few, there were a few that were in the pipeline. There still are. But before pre-COVID, I feel like we'll be talking about our lives like pre and post-COVID for like, PC, like they're both be PC. But pre and post COVID. So pre COVID, I actually was going to write one with another immigration lawyer colleague, like a food related one that we had an idea about. And then I also think, the characters in my book are based on real people. They're based on real clients. There's a dreamer in there that's based on an amazing activist known as Belen Sisa. She actually was Bernie Sanders. She was the Latinx press secretary for him during his campaign. But someone like her, she deserves her own book, her a full book just about her. My client Yulia, who's the Russian artist, she could get her own book. So I mean, I think that I hopefully have more to say and flesh out. So yeah, you never
So
know.
watch
Hopefully,
this
yeah,
space, watch this space.
yeah,
So one of the things that I want to ask you is going back to legal activism. Writing the book is also a form of activism because it's a
yeah.
way to get your voice out there and educate and also have the narrative that is necessary. But there are a lot of lawyers out there who want to make a change, want to add and contribute to the all the atrocities that we're seeing. What would you say to them? How can they get involved?
I mean, I think there's actually lots of different ways for attorneys to get involved, depending on what your field. And it doesn't have to be. You can do pro bono, you can do other stuff in other areas. Obviously, assuming that you get training and are able to deliver competent representation. But I was part of a panel for the Chicago Bar Association where we were actually speaking about. It was like lawyering in the Trump era or something like that. It was definitely more, different titles than that. But that was kind of the idea was that type of thing. And somebody was talking about expungements. Somebody else was talking about civil rights. So obviously with all the protests that have been going on, how can you help? There's what are they called, legal observers that can watch protests and stuff like that, and bail. So I feel like there's lots of different ways for lawyers to kind of tap into that activism box. And so it just depends really on what you're looking for. Some of the attorneys that we ended up picking up on the way to the airport from that first travel ban, neither of those were immigration lawyers. They had just done pro bono volunteer work through the NIJC, the National Immigrant Justice Centre, and had been on their email list for pro bono opportunities. So I think there are lots of different ways to get involved. And I think that those two attorneys, I think they might have been in corporate law, and so their day-to-day was like corporate law, but they wanted to tap into that kind of that real social change. And I think that it's definitely there's probably never been more opportunities to do that right now.
That's really true. I mean, there are no civil rights that are not being
Yeah.
assaulted
Oh my
and
gosh,
human
I
rights.
know.
So,
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
awful.
this is where, the idealism that we had when we went to law school about changing the world, this is the time to use it. And so that's really profound. And I'm so happy that you're able to share those thoughts. I share every single one of them. And, if I think about what, I've seen of you doing and all the things that I've been doing, I mean, it's been a really exhausting 3.5 years. And, I think there's a lot to do between now and November. And who knows after that. But thank you for being on this show. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. Thank you for doing all that you do for the Immigration Lawyers Association, for immigrants in general and the community. And I hope you continue to do all the things that you're doing. So thank you for being here.
Thanks so much for having me. And I just will say that I have never been more proud to be an immigration lawyer. To call you as a colleague and friend. I'm going to feel like I'm going to well up now talking about this, but it's a really tough job.
It really is.
Oh, and I just
Yeah.
feel so fortunate to be able to work alongside colleagues like you and like all the rest of our AILA immigration attorneys. And our clients really, really, really need us and other immigrant, to show up and to speak out. And I feel in a way, how did we end up in doing such amazing work at such a critical time in America's it's a very formative time now. And I feel like as hard as it is I don't know, I feel like could there be a more rewarding area of law? I mean, it's each to their own, but I do feel like this is just incredibly rewarding work. It's tough, but it's so rewarding.
I 100% agree with you. I feel like that too. I feel like I'm in the right place at the right time to make the right kind of change. And I feel very grateful and privileged to be able to help people at a time when this type of help is so necessary. And so I hope you'll come to the show again in the future when
Definitely.
you have your next
And
book.
you've done
and
so much work as well yourself. I'm sure everybody knows about the incredible work that you've done and that you're continuing to do with the DACA clinics and like the Legal Defense Fund. And I mean, you're unstoppable. So
thank you.
It's my absolute honor to be here.
Well, thank you. We're all doing what we can, and we're all a team, essentially.
Yeah.
So there's more to come, and we'll talk about this again sometime. Well, thank you, Fiona. I'll speak to you very soon.
Bye, Tahmina. See you. Bye-bye.
Tahmina Talks is brought to you by Watson Immigration Law. Founded in 2009, Watson Immigration Law is one of Seattle's premier immigration firms, specializing in business and investment visas, but offering a wide range of immigration services. If you need assistance with your immigration needs, Watson Immigration Law is ready to help. Just call 206-292-5237 to schedule an appointment. Mention this podcast to receive a 10% discount off your initial consultation fee.